Hey guys, it's Sora here, and welcome back to another video. It's been a while. It's been a while since I've made any video, let alone a path video. I thought I would just give a rundown on what's happened for me during the league start and what I feel about the league. So first of all, let's talk about what my league was like. My league was pretty okay. We have some amount of currency, and we have a pretty cool split personality cluster duel setup going on here with the Whispering Ice build. This is my second build of the league. I did start the league on a self-crafted freezing poles ice spear shenanigans build. But unfortunately, I was trying to use Inquisitor for that, and I feel like after seeing Maffle's video, Deadeye is probably about 1,000 times better for that kind of playstyle. So yeah, I think my other character's 83 or something like that. It didn't get very far. I got up to probably like early red maps maybe, but it did get us enough exalt to start building this build. So right now I am level 90 with 1,000, basically 2,000 int, 8.1k ES, and some pretty decent gear, I would say. And yeah, that's about it. As you can see from my status, I've dropped 7 exalts and 4 raw divines. This is what my atlas looks like. For favorites, I pretty much just have Underground Sea. I've done both of the new bosses, Syrian Exarch and Eater of Worlds. And in terms of Atlas passive, I've gone with Harbinger, Shrines, Boxes, and both of the new boss wheels. And yeah, that about covers what my league was like. So now, thoughts on the league overall. First of all, you can't really mention a league without the accompanying patch, so let's talk about that first. So this patch was supposed to be the self-cast patch, but as you can see with my build, I am still very much doing cast while channeling stuff, because it just ends up to be better. My problem with the way that they've tried to quote-unquote fix self-cast this patch is they've just tried to add damage to it. And now the problem with that is, the problem with self-cast was never particularly to do with damage. You always dealt more damage with self-cast given enough cast speed investment and whatnot compared to other trigger skills. For example, you can get more than 4 casts a second if you invested enough into cast speed, whether it was via spell or whatever, even compared to something like cast on crit. Now, cast on crit, there is this sort of cooldown. With self-cast, there really isn't. The sky's the limit as far as investment ceiling is concerned. So damage and cast time was never particularly the problem. The main reason why people played triggered versions or alternative delivery methods was just because standing still to self-cast was so horrible. It wasn't the damage. So buffing the damage, all it really meant that changed this league was people could select a clunkier casting method at the benefit of gaining more damage, and that doesn't really fix self-cast in my eyes. I feel like maybe some people can call it a trade-off, but for me, I could never see the value in self-cast gaining more damage when the main issue with self-cast has always been you have to stand still for about 2 eons to deal damage, which is why mines, totems, brands, cast while channeling, cast on crit, how even cast when damage taken was always considered probably better than self-cast because you don't have to stand still to the same degree. So I'm not too happy with the changes, to be honest, but I feel like overall spells got above this patch, so I'm not too upset with it. I do wish they could maybe uh, change things mechanically rather than just doing a straight up number buff or nerf. When they quote unquote fix a mechanic. I'm not much of a bow player, so I'm not sure about the bow situation, but bows was also something that got buffed this patch. Other than that, other big stuff this patch is obviously Alice passive. I really like the current state of the Alice passive. I think it makes maps feel like they're worth doing again on their own without having to spam like 17,000 sextons and scarabs to get a chaos orb to drop now and again. I really like the guaranteed mechanics. So like the guaranteed extra strong box, the guaranteed extra shrine, guaranteed harbinger. I think these are nice. Just having a gradual increase in money per map, that's really nice. Other than that, my problem with the Alice passive is not necessarily to do with the Alice passive, is to do with what the Alice passive actually highlights. And to me, the biggest problem right now with endgame content is that the content itself is not what's rewarding. So if you look at maps, for example, which is typically the primary endgame farm in Path and has been since the Atlas expansion, pretty much. The problem here is, okay, the big reward that you quote unquote work up to, supposedly, by GGG and Chris Wilson, is, you run higher tier maps, okay? So you start from tier 1, you work all the way up to T16, and then on tier 14 plus, after you've done all the quests, you can do 28 maps, or less, potentially, if you get the Alice pass or whatever, and you build up to this big boss. The problem is, the big boss is typically nowhere near as rewarding as the progress of getting there. Like, quite often, I'm much happier running either low to mid tier maps with much less investment on my build because I know I can run the maps a lot faster on a much lower investment compared to high red maps. Because the in-game content in terms of bossing is not actually uber rewarding. It still isn't, in my eyes. It's cool that bosses come out. For example, Black Star has the Polaric, whatever it is called, the ring that lets you cover enemies in frost. That's quite a few exalts. The Ascendancy Jewels haven't gone to drop yet, but apparently there are quite a few exalts. I mean, this stuff is cool, and it's good that bosses like have good drops once in a while, but the emphasis is really on once in a while. A lot of the time, you're getting absolutely nothing from your 14th and 28th boss, and that just feels really bad because you've perfectly well know you could have just ran lower tier maps, probably ran about 50 in the time you could run like 20 red maps at probably at a fraction of the investment. Like I could run tier 1s amazingly quickly with, maybe even less than an exalt's worth of gear, whereas if I want to run red tier maps at any sort of reasonable pace, I'll be paying quite a lot more investment. I'm not saying nerf low tiers or buff high tiers. I think in particular bosses need more work in this game. I think they really need to work on drops more. It's just ridiculous to me to think that the endgame boss, the endgame encounter drops you absolutely nothing, but the maps on the way drops you like, a million exalts. I think it's just crazy how that balance has worked out over the years. This has always really been a reoccurring problem. It was slightly mitigated with the fact of things like Adziri or Shaper and Normal Elder, because they had Uber frags, which were relatively consistent ways of earning currency if you were able to do the boss fight. I think that's a pretty rewarding system. Of course, when you get to Uber, so say Uber Elder, you need something else. Obviously, you can't just keep having Uber frags or frags that go to a high difficulty content, you can't just keep making Uber Elder, for example, or Uber Defeated or Uber Defeated. Let me just put slash D&D real quick. So you can't always rely on the fragment system, but the fragment system is an interesting idea. I think it's really good for lower end versions of endgame bosses. So things like Adziri and Shaper to Uber Elder, whatever. Fragments are super cool. Don't keep doing it, but that's a good, consistent way of making money from bosses, which makes them somewhat feel rewarding when their Uber versions were actually relevant. So when Uber Adziri is relevant, it felt nice to run Adziri because the Uber frags were actually worth a damn. Now, not so much, but the idea is still there. And particularly for Adziri, you still get your boot drop once in a while, which is worth money. Other than that, not too much to say about the new bosses. I don't think they're terribly innovative in those mechanics or whatever. Feels like a lot of mechanics that were already present, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I don't think these bosses were necessarily bad. I just didn't think they were as crazy as something like Shaper was when the sort of Alice and Shaper was first released compared to everything else in the game. That's pretty much all I have to say. The other thing is, I want to mention this more in the mechanics, so I think I'll leave that. So let's talk about the mechanics of the league. So this league, we have Arch Nemesis League, obviously, and the map crafts are pretty decent. Particularly Ambush is working out to be pretty good bench craft for this league, or for any league, just because of the Alice passives that we have currently. I hope they don't nerf any of them, although they certainly will. Arch Nemesis. I have quite a lot of problems with Arch Nemesis, actually, despite the fact that I actually quite enjoy the league. And my biggest issue is this inventory is not big enough. There is no way you think this inventory is big enough. So the approach they try to take with this league is they made everything non-tradable. So everything in the mechanic is not tradable, which is fine. It encourages interaction with the actual mechanic rather than just liquidating all your mechanic currency because you don't really care about it. Which is sort of what happened with Expedition. This league, I really like it. I really like the idea, actually, of it being more sort of self-found focused, though I did wish it was more like Bestiary, where eventually you could sell it. Because at this point, I've gotten 1 million Gargantuans I can't really use fast enough, and I have no space to save everything. Which is my other complaint is, okay, you could have made it tradable, non-tradable, and given us more tabs, because like this is not a whole lot of space. This is what, an 8x8, so 64. Yeah, so you have 64 slots, which is not a lot considering these are account-wide, league-wide, or rather whatever you want to call it, tabs. You have 64 slots across characters, so you're actually able to play multiple characters. You can't actually interact with the league mechanic while you're leveling up because, well, you have all these high level Arch Nemesis modifiers already in the tab, which you don't really want to get rid of for the lower level ones while you're leveling, obviously. So that's a problem. I like that as league wide, don't get me wrong, but if it was league wide, it should have had at least 2 to maybe 3 tabs of this size. I just don't think having 1 tab of this size is a great idea. Other than that, I love the mechanic. It's really cool. I like how it's actually genuinely rewarding, unlike some other mechanics, which was only generally rewarding when you max juice it and your name was Empyrean Gaming. Which brings me on to another point about mechanics. Some legacy mechanics have been nerfed so hard into the ground that they're not even worth running with full investment. My example of this is going to be Breach, which actually isn't on the benchcraft, but so Scarabs. Scarabs are really cool, but I think they also highlight a very big problem in that if you look at the price of scarabs, you can very easily tell when something is worth running or not. When they're like 1C, it probably means they aren't very good. Things like Abyss, Breach, even like, honestly, most of the time, Metamorphs are a little bit different because they get it a lot better when you get the Gilded and Winged ones, but uh, older mechanics that got nerfed to shits because it was quote unquote too powerful should definitely receive a buff at some point. Because like you have to consider people are not running breach even though you have, flash breach, more 30% density, 50% opens closer and faster. You get all like so many breach wheels. Look at this stuff. One, two, three, four. The four breach wheels and they're pretty big breach wheels as well, but like nobody's running breach because they're still bad even after all of this, which is really saying something. I don't get why they nerfed breach as hard as they did. I get that you want to nerf the mechanics to some degree, so that people actually play the new stuff, but that's what 10% occurrence chance is for. You could have just made breach, appear less often, like they initially did with Legion, I believe it was. But no, they just straight up destroyed breach pretty much as a mechanic. Like it's really bad. Which coincides with my next point, which is maps feel really unrewarding if you don't jam them with mechanics. The base game of Path of Exile is no longer really relevant in terms of reward. If you run a map, let's say, the map itself, even if you roll it to like 100 quant, if you don't get random encounter mechanics, and you're not willing to spend 4 chaos because maybe it's the start of league or something, the map is literally worthless. You get like maybe an alchemy or an occasional fusing if you're lucky, on top of your map returns perhaps, which depends from league to league. This league the map sustains quite good, other leagues not so good. Which kind of baffles me. It really baffles me that the base game reward is this bad. There's really no reason for it to be this bad. Especially if they do end up nerfing some of these Atlas passives, the guaranteed ones. So say if they like start nerfing the strong boxes, maybe as what I see likely to happen, or if they nerf harbingers even harder, things like that. I would like to see them buff the base game, like just the base item quantity and whatnot, because it's actually appalling to see that you literally can't map without jamming your map for mechanics, because if you don't do that, you literally get nothing. It's like not even an exaggeration. If you run a map and you don't encounter any random mechanics, you literally don't get any reward out of it. It's crazy. Like I would rather be running Blood Aqueduct because that's free. Okay, I don't see certain mechanics, or I don't see them very often, and I maybe even get less loot drops from my character's high level, but I'd rather run Blood Aqueduct sometimes in early maps because early maps are so unrewarding when you don't have your Atlas passives and when you don't have any mechanics to gem. This is not a problem. It's great that you get more loot when you progress the Atlas, but really the reward floor for maps should be quite a bit higher than what it is now. You should not be getting like a fusing or a chisel and nothing else from a map. That just shouldn't be happening. I think base item quant probably needs a bit of an upping, but other than that, I'm very happy with the league actually. I know I've done a lot of complaining in this video, but I'm actually really enjoying the league. Though I won't be playing much more after this because currently when I'm making this video, yeah, today is the 14th, and on the 22nd I need to play Destiny, Witch Queen DLC, and an Elden Ring. So that's basically my schedule for the next month or so. I need to play Elden Ring, I need to play Witch Queen, and I need to do Day 1 Witch Queen raid. So I might make another video either closer or after the Day 1 raid. But other than that, that's my schedule. Hope you guys enjoyed what I thought about this league and how my league's been so far. And yeah, have a nice day. Goodbye.